Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it is an honor to once again enter into debate in this place. And, let me first get a couple of things out of the way. I will be sharing my time with, I believe, the member for Surrey Centre. And another practical housekeeping item is the fact that I think my kids are getting ready for bed right now. So to Matthew and Emerson, good night. Love you guys, and make sure you listen to your mother. So, Mr. Speaker, now on to the substance of why we're here. I think that it's clear that the fact that, it's just about 9 o'clock here tonight on a Tuesday evening. Generally, the House would have adjourned hours ago. But Conservatives have made it clear that we are willing to work with the government when they're willing to be a good partner. And I think that is demonstrated by us wanting to make sure that two things happen tonight. First is that legislation before this House has the scrutiny that it deserves. Certainly, as a legislator in this country, I take seriously my obligation to review, debate, discuss, and dialogue about the most serious issues facing our country. And as tonight we talk about an important trading relationship, it is representative of how important it is that we have that dialogue. And second, Mr. Speaker, that the perspectives from across our country have their voices heard. Now, although that looks differently today, and I know I get asked often, why are there so many empty seats in Parliament? Well, certainly during normal times, it's one explanation, but as of late, certainly it's a different reason. Making sure that there's safe physical distancing so that we can stand together in the fight against COVID. But for the first time in our history, seeing members of Parliament join in the debate in this place virtually. And that is certainly a significant milestone and is so important that we can have these very, very important discussions. And when it comes to trade overall, one of the most serious obligations of Canada's Parliament, as laid out in the founding documents of our country, was that this place would be responsible for navigating global trading relationships, whether that be 150 some years ago as a new country, under as part of the British Empire. We share a system. In fact, the first words of the then British North America Act talked about how it's a structure similar to that of the United Kingdom. We share much of our history, legal systems, structures. In fact, the very green carpet that we have the honor of debating from represents the very foundations of democracy in our world, not just in Canada, not just in the UK, but the foundations of some of the earliest democratic structures in the modern world. So, Mr. Speaker, it is with that context that we enter into debate here tonight, and it is good to be able to ensure that there is stability in one of Canada's very important trading partners. And we will certainly work with the government. And it's unfortunate. I heard a lot during question period today, Mr. Speaker, and I'll get into the substance of the bill here in a moment. I heard a lot in question period today about how the Liberals they blame the Conservatives for all these delays and different things. And I find that ironic because it's the Liberals that control the agenda of the government. Yet it seems that whenever it's inconvenient for them, they'll simply blame the opposition. Yet the tactics and the politics that they're inserting into the debate, not to mention, of course, prorogation. We lost approximately 35 legislative days. We've had to debate many bills multiple times to fix mistakes made in previous bills, and not to mention the fact that there were many months where this House did not sit in a substantive capacity. And although there are practical reasons for that, certainly democracy is an essential service, and I was proud to stand and debate that coming up on a year ago as we enter into the second year of COVID-19. So, Mr. Speaker, the debate at hand. You know, I find it very, very interesting because although just elected in 2019, I'd spent a little bit of time in Ottawa and had been a staffer prior to getting elected. And it's always great to see the legacies of good governance. And when it comes to what we're debating today, in substance, is actually a Conservative legacy. So you go back to the beginnings of the CETA negotiations. Now, the signatures on the page took place after the 2015 election. But the substance of that agreement, one of the largest agreements signed in Canadian history, was negotiated by a Conservative government, acknowledging a fair and free trade, and how important that is as a resource-rich country with great expertise in products and manufacturing capacity, secure supply chains, technological innovation, that we had that Conservatives led the charge in ensuring that we had a wide variety of trading relationships, and there was a massive growth in terms of the number of countries that Canada had trade agreements with over the close to 10 years that Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. And it's an honor to sit in caucus with the member from Abbotsford and hearing some of the quote-unquote war stories of some of those trade negotiations. And really the substance of the bill that we're talking about today is, although circumstances in terms of the United Kingdom's position in the European Union has changed dramatically over the number of years, when you get into the nuts and bolts of the continuity and the history, the recent history of that trade agreement, it really comes back to Conservative expertise in getting us to the point where really the Liberals and I remember I was not elected at the time, Mr. Speaker, but I saw news articles how they almost dropped the ball on CETA. Yet they were able to get what is largely a Conservative legacy across the finish line, and I'm thankful for that. As a country, it's the right thing for our nation: good, strong, free, and fair trade. So, with what we're debating today, it's a little bit unfortunate because what we have really is an unfortunate comedy of errors that get us to the point we're at. You know, it was if I look at my notes here, it was about a year and a half ago, I believe, that the negotiations broke down between Canada and the United Kingdom. Now, the Liberals were quick to say that it was bandwidth issues with the United Kingdom, and in fairness to the United Kingdom, they are faced with significant challenges because of their exit from the European Union, and certainly a myriad of challenges associated with that. But Mr. Speaker, that didn't stop the Australians. That didn't stop other jurisdictions from negotiating good, strong improvements to their trade deals. So it's unfortunate that negotiations broke down between our two countries, and then it was until the 11th hour that this interim agreement was brought forward, which lacks clarity even, and trade and global investment, commerce depends on certainty. And that's what is required. So this is a good step in the right direction. Mr. Speaker, it's unfortunate because this bill lacks a definitive timeline to ensure that there are concrete steps taken towards a long-term agreement. What's some of the things that should include is we have tremendous expertise, tremendous resource capacity. We have the most, I'm proud to come from an area. In fact, there is, Mr. Speaker, if you can believe this, net zero oil that comes from my region of the country, the region that I represent. That is a proud legacy, that we have the most environmentally, sustainably produced, ethically produced energy in the world. And we have such a strong legacy of that, and so many opportunities to develop agriculture. I come from a strong agricultural region. So many opportunities. But Mr. Speaker, as I see my time is almost up, I think that it should force Canadians to pause. The fact that it seems like ideology got in the way of this Prime Minister, this government, negotiating with a Conservative government from another jurisdiction. And it's unfortunate that it's truly Canadians that end up paying the price for the ideological, sometimes blindness, I would suggest, that takes place from the Liberal side. So, Mr. Speaker, it's an honor to be able to discuss this important bill, to support ensuring that we can continue to develop a strong trading relationship with the United Kingdom as they undergo significant change. And I'm looking forward to taking questions from my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. Questions et commentaires. Alors, la députée de Berthier-Masquinongé.
The Honourable Member from Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I listened to my colleague talk about trade and agriculture, and I know he's going to repeat that he's there to defend supply management, among other things. But why refuse to do it by enacting legislation, except to protect himself from the negligence of certain leaders? I'd also like to hear what my colleague thinks about how we could improve the transparency of these negotiations. These agreements come to us fully printed out, and we have nothing to say about it, even though we're parliamentarians.
This question, I'll try to answer both. I'll answer the second part first. I think it's interesting. I didn't get a chance to talk about this in my speech, but this House, Canada's democratic institution, actually required that the government keep it informed of the status of negotiations, and certainly there was not a lot of information provided, and that is a shame. In fact, it's verging on contemptuous, and often we see the government make grand statements about how they're the most transparent government in the history of the universe, they'll say, but the evidence is certainly opposite to that. And to the member's point on protecting our supply managed sectors and a valid discussion, but I would simply turn it around and ask that member. He's worried about the agricultural industry in Quebec, but I certainly find it very, very troubling how they seem to be quick to target the energy industry in Alberta. And it's unfortunate that there's not that reciprocity in terms of building a Canada that works for all Canadians.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate how the member had some comments about what this side of the House has been saying about the Conservatives holding up bills, and the fact that they are very much interested in seeing this one and supported having this one on the floor tonight. That's great to see, and I'm glad to see that we're able to make progress on this one. One of the other bills that's really affecting Canadians right now is Bill C-24, and that's with respect to extending EI benefits, in particular for those who have been affected by the pandemic. If that bill does not receive royal assent by March the 21st, there will be a lot of Canadians who do not have EI benefits. Now, the Conservatives will tell you, well, it's the Liberals' fault because they didn't set the agenda properly in order to allow that bill to be put on the floor and to have enough time for debate, so on and so forth. But by saying that, they're effectively saying to those people, we're going to hold you hostage because we're upset with the Liberal government and their legislative agenda. We asked the member, all the Conservatives and everybody in the House, to vote to have that debate last night, extended till midnight. The Conservatives voted against it. Does he not think that Bill C-24 to support EI recipients is just as important as this free trade bill?
For Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question, because I think it bears pointing out a simple number and a simple word: 35 days in prorogation. We'd be in a very, very different sort of scenario had the government not decided to try to cover up their scandalous ways. So I think that that's the context for the unfortunate context, unfortunate for all Canadians, the context for which we're in. But when it comes down to Bill C-24 and a lot of the other very important legislation, Conservatives have worked with the government, and we have seen that when, in the midst of a global crisis, when we work together, things get done, and it's unfortunate that the Liberals would continue to play politics with this issue and point blame at the official opposition when in many cases, Mr. Speaker, they've had to bring legislation back numerous times to fix the errors that would have been remedied had it been debated properly in the first place.